In 1925, a British explorer walked into the Amazon rainforest with his son, one of his son's friends, and a small group of local guides, and he never came back out. No body, no camp, no wreckage. He simply disappeared, along with everyone who went in with him, into one of the most unforgiving places on Earth. And the strange part isn't that he vanished. Explorers vanished in the Amazon all the time back then. The strange part is what he was looking for when it happened, and how close, according to some people, he might have actually gotten. His name was Percy Fawcett, and by the time he made that final trip, he wasn't some amateur adventurer chasing a rumor. He was one of the most respected surveyors in the British military, a man who had already spent years mapping remote borders in South America for the Royal Geographical Society, working in conditions that killed most of the men sent alongside him. He had survived jaguar attacks, piranha-infested rivers, diseases with no cure, and tribes that had never seen a white man before. Fawcett wasn't reckless. He was methodical, obsessive about preparation, and by every account, one of the toughest men to ever walk into that jungle, which is exactly why his disappearance became such a mystery. Men like Fawcett weren't supposed to just vanish, but Fawcett wasn't in the Amazon that year for a survey job. He was chasing something he had become completely consumed by. He believed that somewhere deep in the unexplored interior of Brazil, hidden beneath centuries of jungle growth, there was a lost city, a real one. Not a myth, not folklore, but the physical remains of an advanced civilization that had existed in the Amazon long before European contact, and that mainstream science of the time insisted was impossible. He called it simply the City of Z. To understand why Fawcett was so convinced, you have to understand what he had already seen. During his earlier surveying expeditions, he had come across old Portuguese manuscripts, indigenous oral histories, and physical evidence, stone structures, pottery fragments, and hints of engineered landscape that suggested something had once existed in the deep jungle that shouldn't have been possible, according to the science of his era. At the time, the accepted belief among archaeologists was simple. The Amazon rainforest was too hostile, the soil too poor, to support anything beyond small, scattered, nomadic tribes. A large, complex, organized civilization, with cities, roads, and monuments, simply could not have existed there. The jungle wouldn't allow it. Fawcett didn't believe that for a second, and the deeper he went, the more evidence he claimed to find that backed him up. He wrote about geometric earthworks, cleared areas that were clearly man-made, and stories from local tribes describing ancestors who had lived in large stone settlements, not scattered camps. He became convinced that somewhere out there, waiting to be found, was proof that would rewrite everything historians believed about pre-Columbian South America. In 1925, he finally set out to find it, funded partially by newspapers and wealthy backers who were captivated by the story. He brought his eldest son, Jack, and Jack's close friend, Raleigh Remmel. He was deliberately secretive about his exact route, partly to protect the discovery from other treasure hunters, and partly because he suspected correctly that if word got out exactly where he was headed, other expeditions would try to beat him there or interfere with his search. The last confirmed message from Fawcett came from a location known as Dead Horse Camp, deep in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil. In it, he wrote to his wife that he expected the journey to be difficult, but that he was confident. He said something that, looking back now, feels almost eerie. He told her not to worry if they didn't hear from him for a while, because he expected no contact for months. He said he believed they were close. And then, nothing. No further letters, no radio contact, no trace. For years, nobody knew what had actually happened. And into that silence, dozens of theories rushed in, each one stranger than the last. Some believed Fawcett and his companions had simply died of disease or starvation, swallowed by the same jungle that had killed countless other explorers before him, their bodies decomposing somewhere in the depths, never to be recovered. That's the explanation most historians lean toward today, and it's the least dramatic, but it's also the most consistent with what we know about the region's dangers. Others weren't so sure. rumors began to spread that Fawcett had been captured or killed by an isolated indigenous tribe protecting territory that outsiders weren't meant to enter. Some rescue expeditions that went looking for him years later returned with unconfirmed reports of a white man living among a remote tribe, deep in the jungle, refusing or unable to leave. Nobody ever verified these stories. Nobody ever found him. And then there's the theory that doesn't get talked about as much, but that keeps circulating in certain circles to this day, that Fawcett didn't die by accident, that he found something, exactly what he'd been looking for, and that whatever happened next wasn't survival gone wrong. It was something closer to what he wanted all along. Some researchers who studied his personal writings noted a strange shift in his letters in the years leading up to that final expedition. He had grown increasingly spiritual, drawn to esoteric beliefs about hidden civilizations and secret knowledge, convinced that the city of Z wasn't just an archaeological discovery, but something closer to a spiritual awakening. Some who knew him wondered quietly whether he had gone looking for a place he never intended to leave. Dozens of rescue and recovery expeditions were launched over the following decades, and the jungle claimed several of them too. Explorers, journalists, and adventurers chasing Fawcett's fate died trying to retrace his steps, turning the search for the city of Z into almost as dangerous a legend as the city itself. For most of the 20th century, mainstream historians treated the entire idea as a fantasy, an obsession that got a talented but delusional man killed, chasing something that never existed. But here's where the story takes a turn that Fawcett himself would have appreciated. Starting in the early 2000s and accelerating dramatically over the past 2 decades, something happened that nobody expected. Researchers using LIDAR technology, a laser-based mapping system capable of seeing through thick jungle canopy from the air, began scanning remote sections of the Amazon that had never been properly surveyed. And what they found stunned archaeologists around the world. Beneath the canopy, hidden for centuries, were the unmistakable remains of large, organized settlements. Roads connecting communities across dozens of miles. Geometric earthworks similar to the ones Fawcett himself had described a century earlier. Evidence of agricultural systems sophisticated enough to sustain populations far larger than anyone believed the Amazon could support. Entire networks of interconnected villages, some estimated to have housed tens of thousands of people, arranged with a level of planning that flatly contradicted the old assumption that the jungle could only support small, scattered tribes. None of these discoveries have been definitively identified as Fawcett's City of Z. Archaeologists are careful to point that out, and they're right to be careful, because Z was never a specific coordinate. It was a concept, an idea Fawcett built from fragments of evidence and local legend. But the core of what he believed, that the Amazon once held complex, organized, large-scale civilization that history had completely erased, turned out to be true. Not folklore, not fantasy. Verified, published, peer-reviewed archaeology. Which means Percy Fawcett, dismissed for decades as an obsessed man chasing a myth into his own death, was right about the thing that mattered most. He just never lived to see anyone believe him. That raises an uncomfortable question that nobody has ever been able to fully answer. If the civilization Fawcett was chasing really existed, and modern technology is only now confirming pieces of it, how close did he actually get before he vanished? Did he walk directly past evidence of exactly what he was looking for, close enough to touch it without ever knowing? Or did he find something that convinced him to keep walking instead of turning back? To this day, no confirmed trace of Fawcett, his son, or Rimal has ever been found. No grave, no wreckage, no remains recovered and verified by modern forensic science. Just a name, carved into exploration history. A jungle that has slowly, decades later, started proving him right. And a silence that has never been fully explained. Somewhere out there, in a section of the Amazon that still hasn't been fully mapped, even with satellites and lasers scanning from above, there might be an answer waiting. Whether anyone will ever find it, in the same way Fawcett almost did, is still an open question. One that the jungle so far has refused to give up.